Welcome back to Colts Law. I'm Lawrence Owen, and with me is special guest Zac Shomler from Strong Opinion Sports. What's going on, my guy?
Hey, good morning. What's funny, it's noon for you. It's 6:25 in the morning here for me. I tried to wear a Colts shirt. Like, it's the bluest shirt I have. So it's the closest thing I do to wearing Colts colors this morning.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the effort anyhow. I got the kind of similar thing going on. I have jerseys and stuff, but it's just more comfortable to wear street clothes.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
jerseys are not comfortable. I don't know why that is. They're just like, I own one. I own a Tua jersey. Not comfortable to wear, like even a little bit.
Oh, wow. You own a Tua jersey, and he's on IR. So that's interesting that you own a Tua jersey, and the Colts just played Miami. All right, and I'm sure you did. Have you watched that game?
I did, yeah. I watched it to prepare for this. I watched it a couple minutes ago.
So what did you come away from that game against Miami, both Colts and Dolphins, since you watched the game in itself?
Well, I'll say, first of all, I was kind of disappointed the Jacoby Brissett narrative it kind of flopped on its head. I was like, okay. Like, he's a fine, like, somewhere between, like, the worst backup or worst starter and, like, the best backup in the NFL, somewhere in that conversation. I think the number one takeaway I had from this game was that it's kind of unbelievable to me. And I know that Quentin Nelson's out, that Miami got pressure so frequently with a four-man rush on Carson Wentz. I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's a big problem. Like the broadcasters kept saying, I watched the All 22 isn't out yet. So I'm watching the broadcast version. They're like, well, the Dolphins keep blitzing. I'm like, no, they don't. They're not blitzing. They're just getting pressure with a four-man rush against 5 offensive linemen every play, it seems like. And I'm like, how is this happening? I don't understand.
Yeah, that's a situation that the Indianapolis Colts have been dealing with all season. As a matter of fact, we've had that problem since training camp. The problem is there's been injuries. There's been injuries throughout that offensive line. At left tackle, obviously, you know that the Eric Fisher situation that they had because Anthony Costanzo retired last season. Braden Smith goes out with a foot injury, so now we got backup left and backup right tackle that we got to deal with. Quentin Nelson has an injury during training camp, has to have surgery on his foot. The center, Ryan Kelly, has a hyperextended elbow within a few days of training camp. So the only person on that offensive line is the right guard, Mark Glowinski, that's played, pretty much every snap. Everybody else has missed a ton of time. And the backup guards are playing somewhat okay, but so far this Colts organization has yet to find an answer to a solid tackle. And I don't care if it's right tackle, left tackle, whatever. They're just playing horrible. And it's something that the Colts have dealt with for a long time. We had this problem last year and the year before. Whenever a tackle went down, it was just bad news for the Colts. And, people want to say that Carson Wentz is holding the ball too long. He does, but at the same time, when there's a guy coming at you within 1.5 seconds of snapping the football, and he's got to make moves to try to avoid that, that's forcing him to hold the football longer, right?
Well, what's also frustrating is that if you're a quarterback, you drop back, you take your 3-step drop, whatever it is, out of shotgun or under center, and if they bring a 4-man rush, they're dropping way more people into coverage. So it's not like if you end up with pressure in your face immediately against a 4-man rush, you actually can't win. I mean, that's how they beat Tom Brady in the Giants Patriots Super Bowl in 2007. They won because their pass rush was so effective with a 4-man rush. They dropped everybody. Only 4 guys were getting pressure on the quarterback. You can't do anything there. Because it's not like if you blitz a quarterback, quarterbacks love blitz. It's great because, like Joe Burrow the other day is going, play 0, do it, I dare you. Because if you blitz, there's less people in coverage. And you have a great matchup outside. You have one-on-one coverage regularly. But if you can get pressure with a 4-man rush and play coverage, a quarterback is screwed. There's not much you can do other than try to find your check down or extend a play. And so it's funny to see everybody blaming Carson. And Carson has had some moments here and there. And I think maybe actually the worst thing he's done is just not finish the game against the Rams. And he couldn't. He was hurt. But it's like that's when you look back on the year, that's a big missed opportunity. It's going to hurt a lot. But there are times I'm like, Carson can't do anything. He's got pressure in his face immediately, and they're dropping 7 guys into coverage. Like, what do you want the guy to do? I'm sorry, he's not a superhero. It's bizarre to me.
Hey guys, please smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're not subscribed, and tag that notification bell so that you're notified next time I go live. Don't forget, you can also share this video to your favorite social media, and please open up that description of the video. In there you find a link to my Patreon, which is only $5 a month. Get all of my content plus Patreon specific content, and of course my merch shop right here. Yeah, it is odd. I think Carson Wentz has played admirably considering the circumstances that he's under. More so than what I expected. I'll be straight on. Carson Wentz was not my first choice this offseason. I was under the Sam Darnold or Matt Stafford kind of situation. I thought Sam Darnold, he's in a Ryan Tannehill situation. That's what I thought. And so far this year, it looks like I was right, at least in my opinion. Yeah. And then Matt Stafford, I was like, you put a team around Matt Stafford, that dude's going somewhere, Yeah. And it looks like, maybe I was right there too. Now, this past week, it doesn't necessarily pull to my point on that one because of the loss that the Rams suffered. But, I mean, he was pretty much at the top of the MVP conversation before last week. So, I mean, if there's an MVP conversation through 4 weeks of the NFL, I mean, we still got, 14 more weeks to go.
that extra week is going to throw me off for like 3 years. It's kind of like when the month changes and you're like, or the year changes and you're still writing the former date. I'm going to be that way for like 3 years going, it's a 16-game season. Oh, wait, no, it's not. Oh, my gosh. I got to say, it's frustrating, the current culture around football in general is that we look at results rather than context. And so like, if Carson Wentz was 3-1 and winning and dominating, it'd be really easy to say he's playing great. It's hard to say he's playing great when they're 1-3, but he is. And that's where you have to factor in the context of, hey, they've had injuries like crazy. The offensive line is bad. Hey, by the way, he's playing hurt. He could barely walk after some of those games. And in spite of everything, he's doing his job incredibly well, even if everybody around him isn't playing up to the standard. And so it's kind of weird to praise the guy after starting 1-3, but he's playing fantastic. Do you agree?
Oh, I absolutely agree. The only question mark I had was the fact that, I get that this dude is a tough guy, right? And he wants to be out there and play. Every player wants to be out on the field, and they don't want to let their team down, right? I understand that. I get that. But when you're out there on 2 peg legs, you shouldn't be facing the Titans. You need to get that rest, and it's a long season in my opinion. He should not have played against the Titans, and he went out there, and it was obvious he could not move around. There were plenty of opportunities where he could have took off, ran for a first down, or extend a play where he just could not do that. And when you got a high ankle sprain and a low ankle sprain, that's going to affect your throwing as well. Your plant, your push off, all that stuff is affected. So, I understand he wanted to play, but if I was the head coach at that time, and this is probably why I am not a head coach in the NFL, I would have made a different choice. I would have been like, you know what, let's see what we got here with a backup, let's get you healed up because we need you long term this year. Personally, I would be ecstatic that we were forced to give a first-round pick for Carson Wentz at the end of this year because he played well and the Colts are playing well because, rather than, we're giving up a second. Giving up a second, in my opinion, means it's a failure. And
yeah, I agree.
This video is sponsored by Newsbreak. Newsbreak is an app used over 1.5 billion times a month by people just like you to get local news via articles or videos by those who are focused on that specific area. People like myself. Just use the link in the description of this video to download it. Then search a city, state, or someone specific, like myself, Colts Law. Then make sure to follow them so you'll get all the news fresh as it comes out.
Although, so that's an interesting conversation. Is where, as a fan of the Colts, like where are your expectations right now? Because I've had to change my expectations of their season already. I'm like, well, they're 1-3, and I thought they were a team that was a Super Bowl like on the edge of a contender. I think they need another receiver, another player in the secondary, solidify the left tackle position. That would be like those, if they get those three things figured out and maybe a young guy emerges and they do solve some of those problems this year. But going in, I was like, okay, I had really high expectations. Now I'm like, well, no, the year has shifted to just gelling as a team. It's year one of the Carson Wentz. Maybe it was unrealistic to expect a Super Bowl this year. And now we're building chemistry and preparing for next year. What are your expectations so far for the Colts, and how have you shifted after the 1-3 start?
Well, the 1-3 start, because of how well he played in Miami, it kind of adjusted back to where I was looking at.
Yeah.
At 0-3, I was like, if they don't win against Miami, this season is not looking good at all. But it's funny that you were talking about the gelling thing. As I was discussing earlier about all the injuries that the Colts had, especially across that offensive line. The fact that Carson Wentz missed a lot of time with the foot surgery and the close contact of COVID, and then, the ankle injury. Gelling hasn't been happening with this offense at all. It's not just having the guys on the field to playing, but they need to be out on the field playing together to understand, get that cohesion with each other, right? Across the offensive line, between the quarterback and the wide receivers, things of that nature. And I don't think this team is going to be a fringe Super Bowl contender unless they can get healthy and quickly early in the season, so they can get that gel and start to really produce as the season unfolds, because they have to be ending not only on a high note at the end of the season, they have to be in playoff contention. They have to be able to even get into the playoffs, let alone playing well for that. So they got to get healthy. And right now there's just so many questions across the off. I mean, last week we had 2 starters on the offensive line, right? The rest of them were injured. That's not a good sign. That's not a good sign at all. And Quentin Nelson goes to IR now, so that's an issue with a high ankle sprain. What's up with all these injuries? I mean, last year we had the bad injury issue, and it was blamed on COVID because no one practiced. That kind of thing. Yeah. There was no training camp, no preseason. They weren't in football. We had that this year, and yet there's a ton of injuries throughout the NFL.
Here's how I would push back, though, is that, Quentin Nelson didn't have training camp, right? Because he had that injury, and Carson Wentz didn't have training camp. And a lot of, maybe I would ask, was it unrealistic of us to expect Carson to come in and have really great chemistry with everybody when he didn't play a lot during training camp? And maybe I think we're seeing the effect of, when you don't play a lot during training camp, you're missing out on valuable reps to build chemistry with the guys around you. Like, I should have thought of that earlier. I'm kind of embarrassed, like, duh, but I didn't reach that till watching the Miami Dolphins game. I'm like, that explains it. They just haven't had enough reps, and maybe it's going to be like we saw I almost said the Patriots, Tampa Bay with Tom Brady last year. They're a different team week 17 than they were week 1, because you get better as the year goes on, and these guys hadn't played together very much. And I just expect that from the Colts, is that by the end of the year, they'll be a very, very different football team and a different offense if they can stay healthy, and that's a whole other question mark there. But I would imagine like Paris Campbell and Carson Wentz relationship is going to be way better at the end of the year than it is right now.
That's funny you bring that up, because earlier this week in a press conference, they were talking to Carson Wentz about how do you expect, the big plays offensively, where has that been? And he said, I really haven't had the time to gain my chemistry with some of these receivers on the field. I think that we have the talent and the ability to be a big play offense, but he's only got chemistry with certain players so far, like Michael Pittman Jr. That's obvious. He has trust in Michael Pittman. He throws him the ball a lot. And Zach Pascal, he's throwing him the ball a lot. But as you've seen in Colts fans have had this huge thing with Paris Campbell and Mo Alley Cox, right? We feel like both these guys are potential breakout players in the NFL, but they just ain't been getting the targets. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Carson just doesn't have that chemistry with him yet, especially with Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell is a speed guy, and unless you get that timing down with him and understand his speed, you're going to be overthrowing or underthrowing him constantly, and when you're throwing downfield, because Paris Campbell is a speed guy and he's downfield, you don't want to be off on his speed because that's a potential, turnover. Yeah. Mo Alley-Cox, we saw some trust in Mo Alley-Cox and his size and length in the game against Miami. I think we will probably start seeing more of that. But we ain't seen a lot outside of the Miami game. We haven't seen a lot of the tight ends because Jack Doyle, Mo Alley-Cox are blocking tight. They're very good at blocking, and because the offensive line has just been, had this horrible start to the season, they've been held in to block a lot, And so as the offensive line gets healthy, as Carson Wentz gets healthy, as everybody starts to gel, like you say, as the season moves along, he starts to understand, get a feel of the offense. I think this offense will open up quite a bit more. And as you say, week 17, week 18, still a weird thing to say, is going to be a lot different Indianapolis Colts than what we see week 1 through week 3. This channel is proudly sponsored by the Backroom Collection. They do beautiful sports canvas art with football, basketball, baseball, and other sports themes. Special orders are accepted and autographed pieces are available. Many Indianapolis Colts signed pieces will be available beginning in November. Just use your discount code CL10 to purchase the pieces you want to spice up your living area. That's CL10.
Well, if I may real quick, I think people that didn't play quarterback don't understand how chemistry works. Like, potential doesn't mean chemistry. And, I played quarterback in college, and my senior year of high school, I had one receiver was a sophomore, Jeremiah, played Division I college football. Incredibly talented. And we had a senior receiver named Cameron who played the same position, and they would sub in and out. And I had way better chemistry with Cameron. In a 2-minute drill, I was targeting Cameron all the time, and I preferred when Cameron was in, even though Jeremiah could run way better, would make bigger plays, was more talented. I'm like, hey, I know when I throw a 10-yard out route, Cameron's going to be there. I don't trust the footwork of Jeremiah, even though I can acknowledge how much better he is as a football player and as a receiver. So even though Mo Alley-Cox and Paris Campbell, they're very talented, chemistry doesn't work that way. Like, chemistry and talent and potential are not all the same thing, and people often forget how that works. Like, it takes a tremendous amount of trust when you're throwing timing routes and throwing like an out route or a hitch and stuff like that. I mean, you have to understand that just takes time, and you can't force it, and you can't expect. Mo Alley-Cox, I agree with a lot of people saying, oh my gosh, look at what he's capable of. Yeah, totally. But you have to do the work and take the time and be patient and allow that relationship to develop and not force it and not be angry that it's not there yet.
A great representation of that is T.Y. Hilton. If you go back and look with Andrew Luck, the chemistry was there, and they were able to make amazing plays together, plays that you just don't see all the time in the NFL, where, Andrew Luck knew exactly where he was going to be in any given point. Even when a play broke down, he knew he's going to react this way, and I'm going to throw the ball here, and he's going to end up being there, and it's going to be a 56-yard catch for a touchdown, even after, or something of that nature. Andrew Luck retires, and then you have like Brissett, and then you have Phillip Rivers. They don't understand the thought process that's going on in T.Y. Hilton the same way Andrew Luck has. And now, in this situation, when you bring in a brand new quarterback into the equation, it's so difficult on him because not only does he got to get in the locker room, understand the playbook, get his relationship with the head coach or OC has to be like dead on. Now, Colts lucked into that one, obviously. But off the field, right, is so important. And I think that has a big thing. He hosted a lot of people as soon as he was traded for. He was bringing guys like Michael Pittman and Zach Pascal out to California and Arizona and stuff like that, and just throwing around with them, getting to know him a little bit. And I think that helped a ton. Even though he missed a lot of training camp, doing that with those specific guys, I think helped him trust them more and get that chemistry down a little bit faster than with some of the other players. So Agreed, man. I just hope that I hope they're able to stay healthy, because health and being availability, being the best ability, that is key all across the board, across the board. So
well, I got two things to say there, if I may. First of all, I hope people realize and appreciate like the chemistry between Matthew Stafford and what's that? Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp.
It's unbelievable. Like, people don't understand how ridiculous it is. They've reached the level they're at so quickly. Like, it's almost unfair to compare anybody else, their relationship so quickly, to like Carson Wentz or Zach Wilson or any other quarterback in their first year with a new team. It's like, no. Let's appreciate what Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford are doing and not try to expect that from everyone else, because it's just almost impossible. Now, you mentioned availability, and rest is really hard for me personally. I pull all-nighters all the time, and I have decisions like almost every night. It's 2 a.m. and I'm like, do I push through and keep going, or do I go to bed? And I often forget how valuable rest can be. Like, hey, sometimes my best work is going to happen if I go to sleep for 4 hours and then finish. But that I think comes from competition, wanting to, I'm going to get that video out first. I'm going to push through. I'm going to do that. And that explains, that comparison to me perfectly explains Carson Wentz's desire to be on the field. He realizes that the number one knock on him is that he gets injured. Mm-hmm. And he hears it all the time. And look, I get criticized so much. And no matter what I say, someone's going to be mad at me about it. And it hurts. And I don't care who you are. It doesn't feel good. And you know what the criticisms of you are. And there's no way Carson Wentz doesn't know that too, that the knock on him is he gets hurt. So he's eager to prove, no, I'm not going to get hurt. I'm not going to miss games. And I'm sure it broke his heart that he got hurt in training camp. And he's then doubting himself. Oh my gosh, am I injury prone? Because that's all I'm hearing about me. And that doubt creeps in. And so I think you touched on it earlier, maybe putting himself into situations he shouldn't, partially because he's trying to appease people that are not as big as supporters. He's trying to prove to himself and other people that, no, this isn't a problem. I can hang in here, and I'm not injury prone. And it's sad that happens, but it's human nature to want to prove people wrong when you don't like their assessment of you.
Well, yeah, that is a really good point, because on my other show, Believe in Colts, I got DeQuell Jackson is my co-host. Yeah. And we have discussed that before.
I had been mad at dude. I loved that guy.
Yeah.
He was always on my team. He's awesome.
Yeah. Very smart guy, very, very open as well, and articulates very well. Very surprised when I had him as my co-host, and I look forward every week when I sit down and talk with him. But he was talking about how it's not just what's going on here and what you're thinking about fans as well. You're worried about what these guys in your locker room think of you as well. You know, that locker room is so important, and you're the quarterback, and as a quarterback, you want to show that you are a leader and that you are going to be there for the team and that kind of thing. And I honestly, I believe that walking into this situation that he's been in, I think it's more about that locker room and showing them, look, guys, I will be here for you. Don't listen to what the media and fans are saying or what you think that, has happened to me the last couple years in my career. I'm going to be here for you. So what you say, I think, is dead on, but I think it has a lot to do with his own teammates because of that situation.
I've always wondered, what does injury prone mean? Like, how are there certain people that really actually get injured more, or is it their playing style? Like, because it's not, I'm sorry, but don't tell me that Carson Wentz's bones are just more brittle. That's so stupid. So what does that mean when people say, like, what does that actually mean when people say he's injury prone? What are they trying to say, and what do they mean there?
I've heard this, and I was against that for a long time until I realized how I used to play. I'm a 6'6" guy, right? I'm 6'6". Yes.
Remind me never to get in a fight we did then. Oh my gosh.
I'm 6'6", 265. Okay. And I remember how I played, and I got hurt a lot, and it had a lot to do with how I stepped, how I moved, what I thought about when I was given a certain situation. And then, of course, everybody's body is different as well, right? Like, my arm will not bend the same way someone else's arm does. You know, like, you know how some people can, you know, reach on their back and reach all the way up behind their back up to the nape of their neck, where I can't even get to the middle of my back with my arm. You know, some people are just more flexible. Some people move a certain way. Their muscle structure is a little bit different. And then, of course, their play style. You know, I like Carson Wentz. He is known for wanting to hold the ball, break out the pocket, look, you know, extend a play. And he feels like every play that he's out there, he can do something to make a positive situation happen. I understand that. I get it. But Andrew Luck was the same way, you know. But at some point, you have to realize what your body can and can't do in your career. I learned this in high school, you know, before college. I learned this, and that helps, knowing what in the world, you know, what your body can and can't do. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, they knew what their limitations was. And if you got Aaron Donald breathing down your neck and you know he's there, best defensive lineman possibly ever in football, breathing down your neck, if that was Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, they would have went down in a heartbeat and not thought twice about it. Carson Wentz thinks, I can escape this, get out and make a positive play and get a first down. And maybe get a touchdown rather than go for a field goal. And what happens? He gets wrapped up, and you know and that's where that ankle sprain happened. Well, obviously,
that carries over from Philadelphia. And but let me ask you a question, and I want the audience to hear this. Am I talking too quick? I don't know. Like I hear you and your cadence is so beautiful and like smooth, and I know I get excited, like ah.
Oh anyway, no, man, you're fine.
Yeah. Okay, all right. It's very different, by the way, to talk to another human rather than yourself, like in your studio. It's so I love this. When you watched Carson Wentz last year in Philadelphia, the biggest knock I had on the guy was, and his heart's in the right place. He's competitive. He was, you know, playing Superman. He's trying to make every play work rather than trusting the system. And I think there was a total breakdown of trust from the coach, the philosophy, the offensive line. Like, I don't think Carson trusted anything around him last year, which really is going to cause you problems when you don't trust your system that, hey, I don't need to, instead of me making it happen with my legs or brute forcing it, I can trust that we're on the right play call and I can win with schematics. And I wonder if Carson is feeling any of that now with the offensive line banged up. And we've seen him in the past feel this need to make it work all by himself. And that I think it comes from his heart's in the right spot. He's competitive. He wants to win. He wants to help his team any way he can. But the way it kind of manifests is in a very negative way.
I think that you were spot on. And I think that this injury, this double ankle injury, has helped him. Because if you go back and you look at the Titans game, even though the Colts lost, you were noticing where he would get pressure and he would immediately just throw it at the feet of a running back, you know, or something of that. He would just get rid of the football. Same way in the Miami game this week. You noticed that, yes, there were a few times where he would shake off a sack when he rolled out, you know, and then, you know, throw a first down pass. But there would be other situations where he would just throw the ball away. And I think this is helping him a lot, being on the field, realizing, you know what, my offensive line is not at, you know, performing at its peak right now, and I can't move as well. I'm going to have to pick and choose my battles on which to win and which to just say, you know what, let's get to the next play. And I think that's going to help him out a ton, not just right now, but for the rest of his career, because if he takes what he's learning these weeks with this injury and applies it to the rest of his career, and I think it's going to only help him, you know?
Yeah, you don't want to stifle his athletic ability.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, you do want him to develop his play style. You could actually compare him to Big Ben. Big Ben is his problem, where Big Ben regularly doesn't know where his check down is. He's holding on to the ball too long. He's trying to make plays. And it's like Big Ben sometimes forgets he's not 25 years old. He's 39 and his body can't just throw people off his back anymore. Maybe Carson needs to develop that side of it. It's the same problem you got to solve is, hey, Carson, stop running around. Stop taking a hit. Find your running back, check it down, or throw it at his feet. Don't get hit. Like, watching Kyler Murray is one of the most unbelievable things in the world because you can count on your hands how many times that dude gets hit during a game. He's either sliding, he's out of bounds. Part of it's because he's like trying to catch a rabbit. He's so fast. He's like a little just miniature like tornado. But he also is so good at avoiding hits, and that's something Carson has done, frankly, a horrible job during his career at, is making sure he doesn't get hit.
Yeah, Russell Wilson's very similar in that aspect, right? But there is a little bit of a difference. I'm wondering if and I hate bringing this up, but does size play a factor in what you think you can do? Because if you look at Russell Wilson, you look at Kyler, these are smaller stature quarterbacks, right?
Also, the ground's literally closer, by the way.
Well, yeah.
Me sliding would be easier than you sliding, right?
Well, that is true. That is true. But my goodness, I'll tell you what, Carson Wentz is you watch him. He doesn't slide. He dives head first.
Yeah.
And he's a big guy too. And that's more difficult to dive head first than it is to slide. I don't care what size you are, So that's got me on a little bit of a, I don't know why he's doing this. I get that, maybe a couple times you might need to dive head first to get that first down if you're on third down. But if it's second down, there's no point to dive head first. None. Because if you don't pick it up, you got another down to go do it. So, and diving head first, there are players out there. There's a reason why there's unnecessary roughness out there for quarterbacks. There are people, even when they slide, they will still get hit, because either timing of the tackle or something of that nature, or just sometimes there's Vontaze Burficts out in the world. Who are out there to do that.
Have you ever played football with kids, like little, like 8 years old, 10 years old, and there's a massive size difference. So like, oh my gosh, I could plow through like 8 of these guys if I really needed to. Like, there's that like age old thing. What if like could 10 8-year-olds take you out? That kind of thing. When the other day I was at the park with my fiance, we were throwing a junior size football because she we play catch, but she can't throw the big football. And I'm holding this little tiny football going. I literally thought to myself, I'm like, this must be what it's like when Carson Wentz holds a football. He's this massive hulking dude and the ball's tiny in his hands. And you think about Carson Wentz, high school, college, 8th grade, like his whole life, he was bigger and stronger than everybody until the NFL, where suddenly 6'5" isn't that big anymore. 6'5" is normal and sometimes small, depending on the guy and the team. So imagine for him trying to shift not only your style, but your whole like outlook on the game and your entire, like the way you look at everything is you're not any longer one of the biggest dudes on the field. That's a paradigm shift for him. And I'd imagine that's part of the problem here and part of why he has a hard time changing his style.
Well, if that's the case, then I suggest that Frank Reich puts in every day before practice, live practice, and before every game, DeForest Buckner has to walk up to Carson Wentz and give him a bear hug. All right, because
that's gonna humble you more.
that is a big human being. Okay, so that situation, just remind Carson there are people out here that are much bigger than you. And you can get hurt, okay?
Yeah. Well, it may not even be a thought through thing, though. It might just be like that's how he's played his whole life, and you can't turn that off. I'm trying to put myself in his shoes. I always try to, find empathy and find common ground with Carson Wentz. It might just be that simple. It's not his first instinct to get down because he's never had to do it until now.
That is true. I mean, it is possible that's it, and. I mean, I understand where that thought process comes from because, like I said, in high school, I was always the big guy,
Yeah.
College was a little bit different, but still,
Yeah.
And I can understand NFL. Everybody in the NFL is like you or better, unless you are a super amazing, like Aaron Donald, DeForest Buckner, Lamar Jackson. They are something different, right? There's just something different about guys like that. Yeah. Carson, my guy, you're a quarterback. All right, you're not a defensive end or a linebacker, and you got to remember that.
I would love to sit down with Carson because I would wonder what's his perspective on it, because I try to get in his head, why is this happening, and the reality is it doesn't matter why. It helps you have empathy and patience for this process he's going through, learning how to play differently. But at the end of the day, he still has to learn how to play differently. Mm-hmm. And I would love to be a fly on the wall for those conversations where they're in the quarterback room going, hey, you got to get down. And he's like, oh, yeah, I know we say it every week. I got to get down. It's like, well, no, someone has to be telling him this stuff, I'm sure. And where in this process is he not evolving and figuring it out? Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Over a period of time, you expect a player to evolve, right?
Yeah.
And to learn.
You have to.
Yes.
You have to. It's not going to work otherwise.
Absolutely. And in today's NFL, with a lot of fans, there's no patience. None. No. I mean, we're week 4, and we're already seeing where a lot of fans of their teams are looking at their first, second, third round picks and going bust, right?
Yeah.
4 games in, and they're already calling certain players bust. And you're like, are you kidding me? We've only played 4 games. You ain't even gave them time to adjust to the NFL yet, let alone, learn and grow. But with guys like Carson, he's been in the NFL long enough. He needs to realize, what he's good at, what he can do, and what he's not. And like I said, what your body is capable of doing and performing, and what you just should not do in specific situations. Yes, I get that you missed a lot of time due to injury or the fact that, you played well and Hurts came in or whatnot, whatever the situation may be. But you played enough snaps in the NFL by now to adjust your mental aspect of the game.
Yeah. You mentioned impatience, and first of all, I got to say, it made me think of Kadarius Toney. I did a topic about the New York Giants the other day, and I was ragging on Kadarius Toney for doing nothing in the first 3 games. And looking back, it's like, that's so unfair. Like, I actually feel bad. I always look back on what I say, and sometimes I say stuff, I'm like, man, that was totally unfair, and he had a great game week 4. So shout out to Kadarius Toney. He'll never hear this, but if anyone wants to know how my brain works, I do try to acknowledge that. I'm curious because you retweeted something I put on Instagram or somehow, or on Twitter. Something happened, and we interacted on Twitter, and one of the things you said was that people are already calling for someone's job, and people and I'm curious, like, who are the Colts fans that are impatient and very reactionary to that 0-3, 1-3 start? Whose jobs are they calling for? Because I can't even fathom, like, I can't even understand that, because I look at the Colts, I'm like, dude, they got it all lined up. I love their staff. I love their GM. So I'm curious, like, who are those people, those outliers, very reactionary people? Whose jobs are they calling for?
Okay, so as we talk about, you have these fans that are very reactionary to what's going on now and not looking long term.
Yeah.
And
or looking backwards, apparently.
Yeah. Oh, well, apparently Chris Ballard has been the GM long enough to have built a Super Bowl winning franchise. All right. And since it has not happened, and obviously this season is a tanking season, because there's a lot of Colts fans out there that are already saying 4 weeks into a 17-game season that you should be tanking now. That
this is the
he's
problem.
Not the guy. Or Frank Reich. Frank Reich makes 2 or 3 questionable play calls in a game, and then all of a sudden they forget about all the really good play calls that he makes during the game, and it's just bad. Sometimes a play call isn't bad, it was just executed poorly, or a defender makes a great play, but then fans just want to say, well, that's just a bad play call. You don't do that, you know. Like 4th and 1 at the goal line, it doesn't happen. You miss out on points, right? Had he went for it and got it, there would have been no, well, he needs to be fired. It'd been like, he's a genius, you know. So I mean, you got to have a little give and take in that situation.
It goes back to people judge outcome rather than context, and it's such a disservice to the game. I mean, I think fantasy football hurts that too. Like this whole, you know, we look at, for example, interceptions are a great way to, I guess, maybe determine how good a quarterback is, but it drives me nuts because if you throw an interception on a Hail Mary before halftime, it shows up the same as if you threw a terrible pass that got intercepted on a bad decision. It's like, it's not fair to judge people just based on outcomes and stats. You have to look at the context of what happened. And I don't know how you look at the context of Chris Ballard's career. You have a potential Hall of Fame quarterback, Andrew Luck, retire early. Like, he was dealt a crazy hand. He's done such a good job. So then to come down with a heavy hand on Chris Ballard and say he hasn't done good enough, he deserves to get fired. It's unbelievable. You're just completely overlooking all the good stuff he's done and then all the misfortune he's had as a general manager during his tenure.
Yeah, and sometimes short-sightedness and just looking at when your team is not performing to the level that you expect, then you are going to overanalyze and see the bad that has happened in the past more than the good, right? Mm-hmm. At least a lot of people are that way.
Yeah.
Winning, that old phrase, winning cures all, right? And it's the complete opposite of that. There's the complete opposite of that happens as well. If you start losing, then it erases the good in some people's eyes. So, you know, I try not to get too high in a good situation. I try not to get too low in a bad situation. I look at the context. Like you're talking about interceptions. That interception that Carson Wentz on that shuffle pass that happened earlier this year, where I don't put that on Carson Wentz. As I break that game down, I break that play. That play was supposed to happen that specific way. The only difference was Jack Doyle was knocked down by Aaron Donald, right? And Aaron just had an amazing heads-up play, reached back with his elbow, knocked Jack Doyle down, and it's a timing pass. Yeah. And
it sounds like it's bad luck.
Yeah.
And that happens sometimes. Or the defender makes a great play, and you're like, well, I didn't know he could jump 10 feet in the air and grab the ball one-handed for an interception. Like, that's just – sometimes you get beat on a good play by the defense. That just does happen.
Or let's say a quarterback, like you're talking about, sometimes interceptions shouldn't go on the quarterback, but it's still on the stat sheet. Hit a wide open receiver, hit him right in the hands, right in front of his face, pops that ball up. Well, that's on the quarterback. No, it's not. No, it's not. And you got to take context in the situations. Just like everybody said that interception that Kenny Moore had against Brissett. Great play by Kenny Moore. Now, I will give Kenny Moore the credit he deserves in the fact that he was at the right place at the right time, and that's not just luck. That's,
and he caught the ball. I mean,
that helps too.
Him,
that helps too. I mean, but the play wasn't as much of a great play from Kenny Moore. It was just a really bad situation because the receiver didn't even look back for the football. It hit him in the shoulder pad, and bounced up in the air. So, there's just some things you just have to look at and realize what the context is, as you were saying. And sometimes it's difficult when you're in the heat of the moment, especially as a fan. And I will defend them. But the next day, come on, guys, you got to remember how that happened and quit throwing blame where it shouldn't be thrown.
Well, that's where we have the value of breaking down film. We see all these shows, First Take, and I mean, I don't even know. That's the one that comes to mind, right? But they talk about, touchdown to interception ratio, and that's how you ended up with Tom Brady being a bad quarterback. Because when you look at numbers without context and you interpret them, I think, the wrong way. And I don't know that it's dishonest. I think it's just that people are in a hurry or they're trying to fit a narrative for their show, and it's kind of lazy. And so they go, this many touchdowns, this many interceptions, and throw some numbers out there and make a claim that this guy's bad. But that's the value in watching film. I did a film analysis of Tom Brady after that 2019 season. I'm like, look, the film shows he's still good, and I will toot my horn forever. That's like one of my proudest moments of my life is I was dead right. But it's not even a prediction. It's just what you see when you look at the deeper level beyond the numbers. And that's why conversations like this are so valuable, where you can really flesh out everything and not need a quick hit or a soundbite to make a point. I mean, there's so much value in a conversation like this that you get way more out of than some guy going, well, he had 19 interceptions and 23 touchdowns. And therefore it's like, well, were any of them dropped? Right? Did someone go right through the receiver's hands? I mean, context, man, it drives me nuts.
Oh yeah. Context on the 50 sacks that Carson Wentz had in Philadelphia, right? In 12 games. I mean, literally, the dude was looking at 70-some sacks. And you go back and you look at him and you realize the majority of those sacks were not on Carson Wentz, right?
Mm-mm.
No, it was not. It was on poor offensive line. It was on. Now, there were a few of them where he held on the ball too long and he was trying to play Superman and just took the sack. You know, I get that.
Yeah.
There was, I think I counted somewhere between 12 and 16 sacks during that 12-game period was on Carson Wentz. The rest of it was not. You know, but you know, when you're talking, like you say, ESPN or First Take or whatnot, and they just look at the numbers and go, he's a terrible quarterback, right? And what I don't get also, he leads the league with 15 interceptions. 15. Holy cow. I remember when Andrew Luck or some other 15 interceptions, but he had, 40 touchdowns. The 15 interceptions was looked at like, who cares, right?
Yeah.
But, you have 23 touchdowns as opposed to it or something, and you're like, oh, he's terrible. He's a god-awful quarterback. And I'm like, when was the last time 15 interceptions led the league? That's rare. That's something that's something that doesn't happen every day. So, and then on top of that, how do you forget the rest of the years that he played, right? When you're looking at 27 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, basically year after year after year after year for Carson Wentz, right?
Well, him being an MVP candidate, he was the MVP of the league until he got hurt in 2017. Like, he literally was. So there was a year Derek Carr, the same thing happened to him. Mm-hmm. And then we just ignore that and forget that. It's like, well, no, these guys aren't bad. These guys need help. I all offseason heard how Aaron Rodgers needs help. He needs another receiver. I'm like, well, no, first of all, no, he doesn't. Second of all, if Aaron Rodgers needs help, then of course Carson Wentz needs a good supporting cast. It's not like, and then people act like having a good team around you means you're a lesser quarterback. No, every quarterback in the world needs help. Patrick Mahomes has an incredible cast around him. Tom Brady had to leave New England and get better teammates so he could win a Super Bowl. And I just think it's so weird how we discount a guy because he wants better teammates, as if that's like, doesn't everybody want to throw to better receivers and have a better offensive line? Like, you actually can't win with a bad offensive line. I'm sorry. Maybe Russell Wilson can. He's like one of the only people ever that can overcome that just by sheer willpower and running around. But I'm sorry. Like, everybody needs help, no matter how good you are.
Absolutely. I mean, had Sam Darnold been drafted to the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes been drafted to the Jets, how would we be looking
at
players?
That's amazing. What if? That's like such a fun hypothetical right there. Oh, well, like, and what if he had to play immediately?
Yeah.
What if Patrick Mahomes never? Did you watch Mahomes in college? Talented as all get out. Mm-hmm. Also erratic as all get out. And it's just spraying the ball everywhere. And you're like, you see the talent, you also see the mistakes and the lack of discipline. Don't tell me that the year off from Mahomes didn't help him. I mean, that's a really fun. They did that Marvel show. What if? What if Mahomes went to the Jets and Sam Darnold went to Kansas City? Oh my gosh, that's so fun.
Yeah. And we could be completely talking about two quarterbacks in completely different lights today than what Now it is possible that the Jets could have went to the Super Bowl 2 years in a row. You never know, But
I find that unlikely.
I find that highly unlikely. Right. So the Colts are sitting at 1-3 now. The Ravens are sitting at 3-1. They just got done beating the Denver Broncos in a game that was honestly kind of ugly on all sides of the ball. There was times with the Ravens defense, you watch this dude run a football for the Broncos, and he breaks like 8 tackles running the ball and picks up like 30 yards. I was like, how in the world do you let this happen on a Ravens defense that are typically a very, sound defense? And then the Ravens can't run the football. Lamar Jackson, for the second time in his career, has a 300-plus yard passing game, right, against the Denver defense, which is considered – a top 10 defense in my opinion. I mean, Von Miller's been playing out of his mind this year, and you got, very good guys in the secondary and stuff. And then you got the Indianapolis Colts coming in, who played a sound game against the Miami Dolphins, and the score does not reflect that game. I don't care what anyone says. The beginning of the fourth quarter, the Colts were up 20-3. The Jonathan Taylor had more yards than the entire Miami offense at that point. The Miami offense didn't even have 100 yards total, in the beginning of the fourth quarter. And then the Colts defense goes into this prevent mode, right? We have a 17-point lead. We have a 3-score lead. We're going to go prevent. And then Jacoby starts doing things that he just don't do, and that's throw it deep. And Parker all of a sudden remembered, oh, yeah, I can catch a football, and they score some points, and they make it a little tighter, and it becomes a 10-point win. But it's a game where I feel like the Colts are starting to understand themselves a little bit finally.
Yeah.
Starting to understand what they're good at, what they can do, what they should do, what they shouldn't do. And then we got the Ravens team who also are starting to learn a little bit about themselves because of how badly, they're depleted in certain places. Like my goodness, man, that running back stable. I mean, wow. How do you walk in and just completely have to revamp your entire running back stable? They had to sign Le'Veon Bell.
I think we're going to see him this week, right?
Right. I possibly. I would not doubt it at all.
That'd be kind of fun. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you see this game playing out anyhow?
Yeah. First of all, one thing I'm really interested in is I want to see the Colts really commit to the running game. I think anytime you get 2 high safeties, you got to just attack and force that that strong safety to come down and play the run. I want to see that, and it's Frank Reich. I love the guy. I think I don't want to attribute anything to Frank Reich, but I know that as a former quarterback, it's easy to want to abandon and get away from the run, and you get impatient or you get down. And I just want to see them really keep running and really pound that Baltimore Ravens defense. It just wears you down. It keeps you have more time of possession, and you're keeping Lamar Jackson off the field, eating away clock. I want to see them run the ball heavily against Baltimore. Actually, this matchup's pretty similar where I don't know that the Ravens or the Colts are a team that's going to win the Super Bowl. I think they're both, each of them, a couple moves away from, going from a borderline playoff team in the hunt for the playoff spots to being a Super Bowl team. Like the Colts need a couple players, the Ravens need a couple players. This is a very winnable game for the Colts, and I just would love to. I find myself rooting for the Colts this week. It'd be so cool to see them, 8 or 2-3. You beat the Ravens, and then I hate to get away from this, but I can't help but look ahead at you got the Ravens, then you have a lot of tough games: the 49ers, the Titans, the Bills, Tampa, the Patriots, the Cardinals, the Raiders. It's like you have 8 really tough games ahead for the Colts. And when you get a game like the Ravens, a team that you are capable of beating, and then you have a schedule coming up against really tough teams, this is a game you have to win. It's obviously you have to win because they're 1-3 anyway, but I just am so fired up because if they win here, it's going to really, I think, lead to a lot more momentum for the rest of the year. I don't know if that, I'd love to hear you react to everything I said. I spewed a lot of information there. Feel free to fire back.
No, I agree that I think the Colts do need to run the football, and not give up on the run. That's a situation that we was seeing earlier in the year where, Frank Reich was saying that against the Titans game. They were dropping 8, 9 guys in the box, and they would check out of that run. Well, sometimes if you're still running 6 yards a carry against 8 guys in the box, continue doing it, because that's what you need to do.
Don't get bored with success. Just keep doing it. It's working.
Exactly. And I see the Ravens in a very similar situation. I think they're going to try to do the exact same thing the Colts are going to do. I think they're going to try to run the football. And right up until last week, the Colts' run defense has not been very good. Chris Carson had a heck of a game against them. Derrick Henry had a really, another 100-yard game. But Derrick Henry's Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is the only running back in the last 2.5 years that has ran 100 yards against this Colts defense.
Man.
And he's done it 3 times.
Animal. He's so good.
Yeah.
I just can't credit him enough. It's crazy.
But I think this is a game, like last year, the Colts played the Ravens, and to that point, they were the only team. The Colts held the Ravens to 2.3 yards a carry as a team, and 110 yards total rushing, which was like the lowest numbers to that point in the Lamar Jackson era, right?
Yeah.
And then this past week, we just saw the Broncos hold them down in the run game as well. I think they held them to under 100 yards rushing, total. But Lamar threw the football, right? Lamar all of a sudden opened it up and was like, you know what? There's Hollywood open down the seam. Here, just go dive for it in the end zone, you forgot to cover Mark Andrews. How do you forget to cover a Mark Andrews? I don't understand that one at all. He is the number 1 target on that team. It's not Hollywood Brown. It's not the guy they got from Kansas City, Watson.
Yes, Sammy Watkins.
Watkins. I want to say Watson.
I know. I always dude, names are so hard.
Yeah.
There's so many names in our heads. One time I forgot John Elway's name, by the way, and I was like, the guy. He played at Stanford. He won 2 Super Bowls. He's got teeth. I was like, what's his name? It's John Elway. Like I couldn't remember his name, and I was like, if I can forget John Elway's name, you certainly have the permission to forget Sammy Watkins' name.
Right. But yeah, the Colts love to play zone defense, and in this situation, you can't have any mistakes. You literally can't, because if you allow Lamar Jackson to throw 300 plus on you, you're losing this game. I don't care if they don't run 50 yards. If he's throwing 300 plus, you're going to lose this game, because that's just not a recipe for success. I mean, against, the Titans, the Colts also had 3 turnovers defensively and didn't turn the ball over at all on offense, still lost the game. And the Ravens are prone to giving away the ball. I mean, they're, I think, 15th in the NFL, tied right now in turnover ratio, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the Colts are like 5th in turnover ratio. Yes, we need to get the ball. Lamar Jackson, when he goes out and scrambles, that ball is out there a lot. Swat that sucker out,
I got a question. I'm curious, and I would lean on you as a Colts expert here. How do you feel about this Colts front 7 right now? How have they played, and how? Because going in, I was really excited about them. I'm like, hey, and I just kind of think I grandfathered them in as a great front 7. How have they performed, in your opinion, so far this year? Because that will impact how I feel about this Ravens game coming up.
Okay. So starting the season off, it wasn't good, right? You had a rookie in Quiddy Pay who
I love the guy, by the way. Quiddy Pay, like as a human,
I do.
Is an awesome dude. I don't know if he can play football yet, but I love him as a person.
He's still adjusting to becoming at that NFL level, right?
Yeah.
And they're giving him the starts so that he can adjust.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have that counter move yet. Good counter moves down yet. He just has that one go move, which kind of hurts him a little bit. He's not bad against the run, though. Yeah, he's still a developing player. And you like we talked about earlier, give him time. I mean, it's only been 4 games. Yeah. Last week, we weren't seeing the other defensive end flash at all, and we were having issues. We were flipping between who's there? Is it Taekwon Lewis? Is it Al-Qadim Muhammad? This past week we saw more Kemoko Toure. Kemoko Toure ends up with 2 tackles for loss and 2 sacks. So I expect to see more Kemoko Toure. I don't like the Colts in base defense, and I think we're going to see a lot of base defense against.
Why not? Why do you say that?
Because I don't like our Sam linebacker, who is a special teamer rather than an actual defensive, starter.
Yeah.
Zaire Franklin has made multiple mistakes this year that has gave points to the other team in one aspect or another. And whether it's a missed tackle, whether it's jumping early, whether it's running into a punter on special teams.
I remember
all right.
that play. Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness. How you do that when it's 4th and long and then you run into the punter? I mean, come on. There's just some things. And the problem with Zaire Franklin, I loved him as a special teamer, but he's also the special teams captain. You can't have the special teams captain making boneheaded mistakes like that, you know? So, in base defense, it worries me because he's out there and he's not a good Sam linebacker, okay? And then, of course, Darius Leonard been dealing with this sprained ankle that he's had, since the offseason. And that
is Bobby Okereke hurt, by the way?
Oh, by the way, it's not pronounced Bobby Okereke.
Oh, okay. How do you say it?
I thought it was pronounced Bobby Okereke for years. Yeah. And then I went and looked on his Twitter, and he actually
phonetically spelled it for us.
Yes. It's Bobby Okay. Okay.
Let me look it up. Let me find this.
Okay, Reike or something like that.
Reike.
Oh, yeah. If you go to his Twitter, you'll find it.
Bobby
Okereke. Okereke. It's Okereke.
Okereke.
Yeah, it's Bobby Okereke. It took me a second. I had to because I've been saying Okereke like everybody else for 2 years now, and he doesn't even have a blue check mark on his Twitter.
No, he doesn't. Oh my gosh, yeah. It's AOKAYREAOK Ray. I would have never. Man, did Stanford pronounce it wrong too? I think they did. I think like in the Pac-12.
And the Colts PR has been mispronouncing it this whole time.
Well, good for him for getting things sorted out. And it is weird that he only I have more followers on Instagram than he has on Twitter. That's very weird to me that he is like. Yeah. I guess not very big on Twitter. Huh.
Okay, so Bobby O is.
Okay, Reke. Don't ever let me say that again. Now I have no confidence saying his last name. I was so sure of myself.
Okereke is how I think it is. But
Bobby O.
Bobby O.
How's he playing? Right.
So against the pass, I think he's pretty good. Okay. The problem against the run is he gets caught up in the wash. All right. And he does have
define that for anyone. Define what that means.
Okay, so the wash is when you have your offensive line and your defensive line, and they came together after the snap, and you got this uneven line of people that are just battling it out, right? Yep. And that is the wash. You got to be able to, move around and through that without, getting caught up in it by running into people or someone getting an arm out
without getting caught up with other bodies.
Exactly. So, he has problems getting through that wash and getting to his gap and making the tackle. That is a problem. Is it a
physicality problem?
I think it's an arm. I think his problem is he doesn't use his arm length. He's got really long arms like Darius Leonard, but Darius knows how to use his arm length to keep separation from guys that get close to him so they can't get hands on him and stop him from getting to where he wants to go. And I think Bobby, I think needs to sit down and learn how to do that himself. That's a problem. Also, he's a slight linebacker as well. He's built a lot, like I said, a lot like Darius Leonard. And when you're 220, 230, and you're sitting at middle linebacker, at the Mike position, you got to be able to hit running backs at a level and an angle and just in a way that you're not going to be pushed back 2, 3, 4 yards every time, and he's not learned how to do that yet as well. A play that comes back to me, I believe it was against the Rams, where there was a pass out to the sideline to their tight end, Disley, I think his name was. Mm-hmm. And Bobby ran right up to him and was going to, tackle him out of bounds. And Disley was literally like a foot from the out of bounds, turns around. Bobby runs into him and crumbles like a rag doll.
Will Disley is Seattle. It's what's his name? I know what you're talking about, though. It's, God dang it, what's his name? Anyway, continue. I'll find it for you if you want.
But yeah, he completely crumbles coming up on couldn't even push him literally a foot.
Tyler Higbee.
There we go.
Tyler Higbee. There we go.
So that's you got to be able to find and hit the right spots.
Yeah.
To be able to tackle somebody, and I think he's having problems doing that as well. It's gonna take time for him because Anthony Walker Jr. was really good at doing stuff like that, and now he's over on the Browns and IR over there. It's a completely different story. He's gonna have to learn how to be that guy because as a Mike linebacker, that's your job, right? You have to be able to hit guys and dead stop them wherever you hit them. You can't let guys run over you, otherwise, what's the point of being that that position?
You got to be a run defender.
Exactly.
So will the Colts have a hard time stopping the running game of Baltimore on Sunday?
I don't think so. They were, like I said, they started having these issues earlier in the season. I think that had a lot to do, in all honest opinion, with the ends. They weren't able to set the edges, right? And going up the middle, the Colts, any runs up the gut, right, on either side of the centers or the guards, they're only giving up 2.2 yards per carry. But when you get out to the outside edge, that's when you're seeing 6 yards per carry. Whenever they're going off tackle or sweeps or something of that nature, that was an issue. Our defensive ends were having issues setting edges. They have gotten better at that against Miami. They did a whole lot better there. And I know that the Ravens have their issues at tackle right now, right? So I think that they might be able to take advantage of that a little bit. I think they'll be okay with that, especially with their style. Their zone run defense is so reactionary that RPO and style of running that they run, I don't think affects the Colts defense as much as it does a lot of other teams, right? Yeah. That's why the Chargers were very successful when they put a bunch of defensive backs out there and ran zone defense. The Colts last year against their run, that's because of how that zone style. I don't like zone defense very much in general, but against this style of offense, I think it plays right into the wheelhouse of what it's meant to stop. So I like the Colts D against the run. I don't like it against the pass because, like I said, Hollywood.
Rock Ya-Sin scares me.
Well, Rock's played well this year.
Has he?
Yeah, he didn't play last week because he got hurt, but the first 3 games he gave up.
That's the most Colts sentence ever, by the way.
Right.
He didn't play last week. You can say that about anybody.
Yeah, about anyone on this team. They've missed a game somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But in the first 3 games, Rock Ya-Sin has only given up 5 catches, 6 yards per catch.
Wow. Okay. There we go. That was a big concern I had going into the year. So he's playing well.
Whereas Kenny Moore has been picked on. Kenny Moore, who many consider to be one of the best nickel corners in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
He's not. He's got picked on this year quite a bit, and so have our safeties, So it's that over the middle stuff that worries me more than anything, and Mark Andrews is really good at that. Hollywood Brown, when he runs post routes, scary as heck. If Lamar can be somewhat accurate 20, 25 yards downfield, Hollywood Brown, as long as he catches the football, can make big plays at any time. Now, I get like 2 weeks ago, Hollywood had, 3 drops on passes, so we'll see which one that the Ravens bring this Sunday or this Monday night, right? Because it's the Monday night game. But, yeah.
Let me ask. I don't remember. I remember the long touchdown, but I don't remember how it happened. Week 1 against Seattle, what did Tyler Lockett do that got him wide open over the middle? I think he had like 2 massive plays. Yeah, what happened? Was it play action? Was it a double move? Like because that's my fear as I look at what Tyler Lockett did and go, oh, that's what Marquise Brown could do against the Colts on Monday.
Yeah, okay, so both plays were separate. The reasons why Lockett got open were 2 different reasons. One, the second one, the longer one, that 60-yarder, right? Later on in the game.
That's ingrained in my memory forever.
Yes. Okay, that was a situation where the safety, Kari Willis, they were playing zone, and when the cornerback stopped, there was supposed to have been a pass off there, right?
Yep.
And it didn't happen. Kari bit on the inside move and thought that Lockett was going to go inside, and instead he went right past him. And by the time
vertical.
Yep. And by the time Kari Willis reacted to that, he was already 5 yards past him. And when he's already got a running start and you got to catch, you're wide open. There's nothing you can do about that. That was a bite by Kari that shouldn't have happened, right?
Yeah.
When you're the
safe coverage.
Yeah, it's a busted coverage, because when you're playing zone and you're the safety in that zone on that side of the field, I don't care if you're single high or playing too deep. If it's on your side, you never, ever, 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 ever let a receiver get past you for any reason, right? Mm-hmm. And he did, and that was on him. The second one, or the first one, it was like 29 yards, I think it was, or somewhere around
something
that
like
vicinity.
Like 31, something like that.
That was a situation where it was, in all honesty, he had pretty good coverage on him, but it was a busted play. Russell Wilson extended it, and they knew each other. Russell threw him open, and he made that cut at the last second to get to that ball. Kari had no shot. It was just a really good offensive play. Good players do that. Sometimes you just can't put it on the defender and go, well, that was all on that defender. Sometimes offensive they get paid too, right? I'm pretty sure the offensive players get paid too to make great plays. And they just made a really good off the book, off the cuff type of play that was very difficult to defend in that situation.
Okay, fair enough.
So you think the Colts have a shot at winning this game against the Ravens on Monday night?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think I go back to, and maybe my logic is flawed, but I couldn't tell you like how they match up specifically, but I know in my head they're both 3, 4 players away from really being able to take a run at a Super Bowl. And I think when I in my head, I have a tier rankings roughly of like, these are like the very best teams in the NFL. These are the playoff teams. And then that like third tier in the NFL of guys that are like teams that are in the hunt, and they might go like, I'm trying to adjust with the 17 game schedule, like 10-7 or 9-8 or 11-6. Like they're right on that, somewhere that bubble. And I would put then, if I'm tiering everybody, Baltimore and the Colts are in that same third tier down, where they're not automatic playoff teams and they're also not terrible. They're just kind of in the hunt every year, and at least this year they will be.
Well, it's like a lot of people forget that, yes, they started off 0-3, but if you go look at that Rams game, they should have won that game.
I know.
They should have.
And that's one of the best teams in the NFL, I think.
Yeah.
So it's not like the Colts they can win, I think, any game. And it's the NFL where you can win any game anyway. But I'm sorry, the Jaguars are going to have a much harder time beating the Rams than the Colts had an opportunity to do in that game. And I'm like, man, I just people so quickly. That's why context matters.
Yeah.
If Carson Wentz doesn't get hurt at the end of that game, maybe they don't win, but it's definitely. I mean, it would have been interesting, and I wish we could have seen that play out without him getting injured. Because what happens if Carson had played in that final drive against the Rams? They might have won that game, and we look very differently at where both the Rams and the Colts stand right now. It's funny how one game or one drive can affect not only the outcome of a game, but an entire outlook on a season for two different football teams.
It shouldn't even came down to Carson Wentz's injury. Because you look at, they lost by 3. 2 different times in the first quarter, they were inside the 5-yard line, 1st and goal inside the 5, and came away with 0 points. 2 different times.
So painful.
And so, like I said, they should have won that game. They didn't. People want to say that, the Rams I think the Colts beat themselves in that game, right? And that's another one of those situations where fans, right off the cuff are like, we need to fire Frank Reich because he got inside the 5, it got hit twice, no points. Don't look at the context of what happened. But yeah, I get you. This is a situation.
I'm good. Good. Sorry.
Oh no, yeah, I get you that it's going to take health and chemistry. I think the Colts have players. I think they have the right players. I agree. Maybe 1 or 2 different guys somewhere. I think they have the wide receivers. They just need to get the chemistry down. You know what I'm saying?
Who's that receiver? Michael Pittman Jr.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching that dude. He had a game. USC had a 3rd-string quarterback playing against Utah. And Michael Pittman Jr. single-handedly beat Utah with 3 massive catches where you're like just posterizing people, catching touchdown passes from, I think, was it something Fink? Like Matt Fink or something like literally like the 3rd-string quarterback at USC comes in the game and it just launches bombs to Michael Pittman Jr. who beat Utah by himself. I'm so excited. I guess maybe where I'm going here is I ask you, like, what is the thing or the player or the narrative, or you can answer this any way you want. What is the thing you're most excited about with this Colts team in 2021?
Oh, my. Excited about?
Yeah, like what gets you pumped up? Because there's a lot of things to be disappointed about or depressed about. Like, I'd rather be positive. Like, what makes you go, oh, that I love watching that, or I'm excited about the future of that, or it just there's certain, like Joe Burrow calling out cover 0, saying, "Don't play cover 0." That fires me up. I love that. Is there anything that makes you feel that way about the Colts this year?
Yes. Now that you talk about, in all honesty, it's still Carson Wentz. If Carson Wentz has been playing the way he's been playing with the protection that he's had, if the Colts offensive line gets healthy and gets back to playing the way they were last year, the year before that, a top 5 offensive line, imagine what this guy can do on the field when he has time to make plays, let alone the situation that he's in right now. That's something that's excited to get
you see the potential there, and you're like, oh boy, this could be really special if we figure it out.
Exactly. That's something that excites me a lot. And the fact that, that's Jonathan Taylor and Naheem Hines behind him, right? And currently right now Marlon Mack until he gets traded. But
you really have 3 running backs that are very quality in Indy.
Yeah. Exactly. I think we have the best running back stable in the NFL.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we have the best.
I agree with that.
I'm not saying we have the best running back. Obviously, that's like Derrick Henry. I'm not saying we have the best 1-2 punch because that you got to go to Cleveland for that. In my
nobody's
opinion.
A 1-2-3 punch though.
The 1-2-3 punch. That's a different story. I mean, it's just depth. Depth is always nice to have in that situation. The Colts are lacking that at the offensive line at the tackle position, and that's what's hurting us right now. So they need to get those starters healthy and get some good quality playing time in there. And Carson Wentz needs to be on the field healthy and get some quality playing time with his receivers. And not only that, understand the offensive line, right? Every offensive lineman reacts differently when they're beat in a certain way. And a quarterback, this isn't talked about enough either, I don't think. Like, there's times with certain offensive lines that you step up in the pocket, and then if there's a different player at the tackle, there's times when you take off and roll out, instead of step up in the pocket. It depends upon how an offensive lineman reacts when he's beat in a certain way, because not every offensive lineman has that same reaction. So he still hasn't played enough behind these guys to know how to react and how they react, so that he knows how to react to their reaction, I guess. That's a lot of reacting. But
I got a question, because I've never been able to ask an Indianapolis Colts fan this question. And I remember, was it 2 years ago now, where I did my prediction for the Colts, and I do a prediction style every year where I pick, I go through every game, I pick every game, and I have a very specific record. And 2 years ago, I didn't even put out my season prediction for the Indianapolis Colts, because I was so wrong because of what happened, which was Andrew Luck out of nowhere. I was actually away at football training camp in college, just retires, and you're like, oh, what? It's so unexpected, just bizarre. One of the more unbelievable things I've ever seen happen in football. It's that, and Urban Meyer getting grinded on in a bar, right? So I want to know, how did you feel, and what was your reaction when Andrew Luck just out of nowhere retired like that?
Oh, well, first off, like any NFL fan would react to a situation like that, a little bit of shock. I was like, did not see that coming, right?
No. You're excited about your future Hall of Fame quarterback, and then he's gone.
And then I became disgusted, not at Andrew Luck, but at the fans that were at the game. I was disgusted because I knew immediately that national media and other teams, other fans of other teams were going to look at that and go, what kind of horrible fans do the Colts have there in Indy, right? To sit there and boo their quarterback. And that's a situation. Andrew Luck didn't even get a chance to say anything. They were told on social media, right? The fans were, on social media, he's about to retire. And then, he's getting booed, probably doesn't even know why he's being booed as he walked off the field, out of nowhere. So that was a disgusting. And then I came to realize, what? That was just a poor reaction by a lot of drunk fans, at a preseason game when they just got really, really bad news, right? But then I realized, I sat down after I had time to digest it, and I realized, you know what? Andrew has been dealing with pain for the last 3 years in the NFL. And not just in one place, in different places. And I can understand the frustration that was going on in his head, where, he had the shoulder issue, couldn't get it right for 2 years, could not get it right. And then, he had that lacerated kidney, that couldn't have felt good. I know that couldn't have been roses and unicorns in there. And then all of a sudden he has this foot injury. They can't even find out what's actually wrong with it, right? First they're like, well, it's a calf injury. Oh no, now it's a high ankle. Now it's a foot. Now it might be the heel, and he's sitting there for 3 months through training camp and preseason going, you don't even know what in the world is going on here. I can't get healthy. I can't, dealing with all this pain. I'm getting ready to have a child, my wife's pregnant. She's getting ready to give birth, in a couple months. I think I'm done. I think I'm going to live my life, And as much as it pained me to see him go, I'm happy that Andrew chose to take his own personal self and move on with himself, because everyone deserves that. Everyone deserves to be happy. and have a good quality of life. And the road that he was at that point in time, the quality of life was not. It was only going to keep going downhill at that point because of the injuries that he was suffering. So even to this day, I wish nothing but the best for Andrew, and I hope that he's happy wherever he's at.
I gotta say, your answer, I think, kind of proves a theory I've always had about Colts fans. It's funny you say you felt embarrassed about your fan base, because I think that in Major League Baseball, the St. Louis Cardinal fans are the most well-informed. They clap, they cheer for other teams when they do something respectable. And I don't know if this is accurate. I've always viewed Colts fans the same way. You guys aren't Philly. You guys aren't New York. You guys are. You respect and appreciate the game of football. And maybe that comes with having Peyton Manning for years. He trained you guys pretty well. I don't know. I don't know. But I've actually always viewed your guys' fan base as very, very – and I've seen it because I get messages from you guys, right? I get – every fan base has something to say at me at some point. And Colts fans have always been very intelligent and respectful and well thought out. And I don't know. Even your answer, instead of anger, like Philadelphia – would have had anger. Screw Andrew. Like, you found empathy for the guy. That says a lot about not only you, but about, I think, the attitude of Colts fans in general. That's very cool to me. I think that's really, really special.
I kind of agree with you for the most part. I mean, every fan base has those fans that the rest of the fan base is embarrassed to say.
You kind of roll your eyes like, ah.
Yeah. Come on now. Every fan base has that. I know that. For the longest time, I thought every Patriot fan was an asshole. Okay, I really did.
It might be still though. They still can be.
And now I have for the last 2 years partnered with a Patriots YouTuber, and shout out to Dear Pats Nation and Ray Rout, because he has changed my overall opinion of general Patriots fans. Okay. Him and a lot of his fan base. They have I've been on his show a lot, and for the most part, the people that are on his show are respectful to me, and I'm a Colts guy, and you just would not expect that. You know what I mean? So, shout out to him for helping me change my perspective and make me realize that every fan base has those asshole fans. Yeah. But every fan base has respectful fans too. I think a lot of the fan bases, correct me if I'm wrong, but I honestly believe that the fan bases are kind of molded by their local media and how they report things.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
1,000%.
Yeah, I think that's an issue. We're starting to see that a little bit in Indy, where there's a couple local reporters that are making pieces that, reactionary shock pieces, and I think that kind of breeds the bad fan once in a while, and we all have to deal with it. We all have to see it for what it is, and just kind of move on from it.
I assume you're in Indy, right?
Well, I'm outside of Indy, but
you're in Indiana,
yes.
I really. It's a different, special place to be. I've been in Cincinnati. I've been to the Midwest a lot, and I know that I've actually never been to Indianapolis. I've been an hour and a half away in Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati might be literally my favorite. I live in Hawaii, but in the lower 48, it might be my favorite place in America. And I can't compliment enough like the attitude of the Midwest. The way New York is a whole different breed. They're angry, and it's kind of fun, but the Midwest is so welcoming and respectful and kind. And it makes me excited. I know I want to visit soon and go to Indianapolis and be there and experience the city, go to a game at Lucas Oil Stadium. And I get such a cool vibe from everyone there, that Midwest attitude. And it's funny, that kind of media, the media that is very extremist and picking a side usually comes along with coastal cities. You don't really see that very much in the Chicagos, the Cincinnati, maybe Chicago is a bad example. They're like the one Midwest team that acts like New York, but there is a spirit to the Midwest I really, really appreciate, and I just think that's so cool that St. Louis, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Minneapolis. You guys have this really cool spirit and attitude of everyone there. I just can't say enough good things about the Midwest. I really love it.
That's awesome that you say that. I hear that from a lot of people. We like to say that Hoosier hospitality is a real thing, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's not just with Indiana, like you said. There's a lot of your Midwest center of the country, you know, not on a coastal. I think that's because they don't have the population.
Yeah.
It's more welcoming because you don't feel as crowded. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the reasons why Chicago is that exception, because they are a really big kind of, you know, densely packed populated area. So, I fully agree. I think Indianapolis, just like any city that has, you know, 500,000 or more people, you're going to have the bad areas in that city, obviously.
Yeah.
But downtown Indy is a beautiful place, very polite. You'll always get people to help you. If you don't know something, you're going to ask a stranger on the street. They will help you out. And then, of course, going to a game, you can go to a Colts game against the Titans in Lucas Oil Stadium, be a Titans fan wearing a Henry jersey. You might get rubbed a few times, you know what I mean? Kind of ribbed a little bit.
Yeah.
But no one is going to pull you out back into an alley afterwards, like you've seen in other games where, you know, some fans just get beat up for wearing the wrong jersey. That don't happen in Indy, you know? So, yeah.
Well, it's weird. I lived in LA. I worked on movies. I've been a coastal kid my whole life, and it's been really weird and kind of frustrating how. And I don't want to go political at all, but I do want to say, like, it's funny how the coast often forgets about the Midwest and acts like they don't exist, and like it's such a weird echo chamber that forgets about that part of the country, and it's like it drives me nuts because one of my dreams is to go to Indianapolis 500 someday. And it's like it's a whole different America. It's not comparable to anything else in the rest of the country. And like I want to go there someday and experience that. It's so like I love it. And I have friends who've gone, and I'm lucky to have friends all over America because of my job, and I get to do national sports radio and do a thing. It's so fun. And as a result of that, I know people everywhere. And some of my favorite people are in Indianapolis and Cincinnati, and those two cities are two that I really really love. And have you ever been to the Indianapolis 500? Is it as cool as I'm making it sound?
I personally have not. Personally have not. Now I've been to IMS. I've been to the Indy Motor Speedway, but not during the 500. I have a crowd issue. All right, I have.
That's very fair.
And there's like 500,000 people there when this race is going on. So I'm like I can't do it. It's difficult enough.
Football games at home?
Huh?
Do you prefer watching football games from home?
Oh, yes.
I mean, that's how I feel.
Yes, I do. And I've been to some Colts games, and it's difficult for me to go to these events because I do have a crowd phobia, and so my fandom overcame me twice. I've been to 2 Colts games, and I come to find out that I can't be in cheap. No, I have to be in the cheap seats. Okay, so I can see everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't have a bunch. You know, I don't hear as much behind me.
Yeah.
It's all in front of me, so I don't feel as enclosed. You get what I'm saying? So but when I'm down lower, it's all coming from all around me. I feel like I'm stuck. There's no escape. Blah blah blah. And it ruins the time for me when I'm there watching the game. But you need to come to a Colts game sometime, man. Come visit.
Dude,
Indy.
I got a plan. In my head, I'm gonna go. We'll see when COVID figures itself out. But crossing my fingers, and we'll just see. But my dream is to do a Midwest tour someday, where I just rent Airbnbs for like 2 months and record shows on the road and drive between cities and go to games every weekend and meet people and have food. And my favorite restaurant in the world is Skyline Chili in Cincinnati. I love I love that so much. And anyway, so
Well, I mean,
guess
that's my goal. My goal is to one day be able to buy myself one of them really great RVs and just go, you know, and drive around all over the country and do shows and obviously I can't drive to Hawaii, but maybe meet you somewhere on, you know, and then be
if
like,
you're ever here, I'll buy you a beer, man. The minute I'll buy you a beer. It'll be so fun.
That's my goal. That's something that would be so awesome. Just not to be stuck, you know, in your office all the time. You know what I mean? So, and just be out and be able to breathe the fresh air and go to games at different states. I want to see what it's like at Lambeau. I've always wanted to know what it's like at Lambeau because that look not in January. But
you're like, I want to go in September.
Yeah. I don't want to go when it's negative 30 degrees.
Though. There is something to that December cold that maybe you got to really know.
Maybe, and I live in Indiana, so I'm not, you know, completely ignorant of snow and cold. But
you're not a snob like me who gets cold in 68-degree weather now. Hawaii changed me, dude. I can't even imagine going to. Winter sounds horrible.
Right.
I couldn't do it.
I mean, to be fair, I think 90 degrees day in, day out sounds horrible. So
fair enough. I got two questions, if I may, real quick. Number one, you know, I'm a big introvert, and people wouldn't know that. I can talk to people, and I can turn it on and have conversations. But is that part of what makes the crowds tough for you? Like, are you an introvert as well?
Growing up, I was. Growing up, I was really, you know, I kept to myself. Didn't really, you know, everybody saw me as the shy guy. You know, that type of situation. Doing this has helped me a lot. Yeah. Right. Just sitting there, even though you're not in my room, up here you are. You know, when I do live streams and I'm sitting there chatting with people, you know, in the live chat, up here you're in the room with me and I'm discussing things with you. So it does help a lot. And you can see that, like earlier when we was discussing before we started recording this, and we were discussing, you know, some of our stuff that we were doing way back in the day, you know, when we first started, and you could see how much more comfortable you are now talking and how much better things are as opposed to back in the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
well, is it confidence too? Like I'm, and this has echoed to every part of my life as I've even like I moved to Hawaii, and this room is really echoey. I just heard a car drive by. You can hear, like, I hear all these sounds, and it used to throw me off a lot. And I got really comfortable, and I'm more, as my confidence has grown on camera, it's really leaked into the rest of my life, interacting with human beings everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, confidence is a huge thing. And the only way to get confidence in doing something is to do it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and do it a lot to the point where it's just second nature to you now. And, you're absolutely right. Confidence is a big factor in it. And it only comes through time and practice and just pushing through. You know, you were talking about earlier, don't come up with excuses not to do it. Come up with the excuses to do it, right? And that's what you got to do in anything in life. Anything in life. Doesn't matter if we're sitting here doing this or if someone here is watching and they want to, you know, go to college, you know, to learn something new and make their life, you know, better and expand their mind. But they, you know, they'll keep coming up with, well, you know, it's expensive. I might not be able to get a grant, or, you know, student loans kill people these days, you know, or there's COVID, you know. Quit making excuses not to do it. Write out a list of why you should do it and focus on that, and that'll help you get through it. Yeah.
Well, also, don't tell yourself you can't. I mean, a lot of the time when you say you can't, it's because you're not willing to sacrifice and do what it really takes to make it happen, right? You can put your mind to all kinds of stuff that seem impossible, that if you're really, like, for example, to live in Hawaii, I live in a 1-bedroom apartment, meaning that we don't have a living room. This is the bedroom I'm sitting in, and then our kitchen and our bedroom are the same room. And literally, like, you turn right from the sink and you're looking at our bed, and there's no other space. But I'm like, hey, I can afford Hawaii if I have no space and downsize, and I figured out how to do that, and that's been, I think, realizing like you have way more options than you realize. You just have to be willing to sacrifice what it'll take to make that whatever that dream is happen.
Absolutely.
And I'm privileged. I hope it's clear. Like I'm very grateful to live here, and I got lucky and fortunate and all that stuff. But also part of that was I really sacrificed to get here. And you talked about I had so much empathy for you, man. You talked about how your house burned down, and my house didn't burn down, but I did get rid of everything I own except for what fit in 3 suitcases. And man, I to some degree I have empathy for you of losing all of your stuff, because I did, and it's what a jarring change that is in your life to not have all your stuff and just be like, well, I guess we're restarting. Like, yeah. I don't even have a knife. Like, I got to buy all new kitchen knives. Like, you know, like it's a wild position to be in.
It absolutely is. Now, I think you should find a way to bring yourself a generator and do a few streams as a beach bum. You know, just do some recordings as sitting out, you know, and I think that would be so awesome. I think
it's a good idea.
Because I mean, Hawaii, when you think that's something that happens, you know. I mean, I don't know, I'm not there, I've never been to Hawaii, but
I got a story for you. You know, the other day I was recording the show, and I woke up to the sound of a jackhammer, and I'm like, oh my gosh! I had a whole show planned and written, and I found a way to record without, like, kind of in between during their lunch break. But in my head, I'm like, am I gonna have to go in my car and like jank up a recording setup literally in my car in my back seat so that I can make a show today? Because I'm down. I'll figure it out. I'll put a palm tree in the background and I'll open up the back. And now that I actually, you know, thank you for the suggestion, because I really should force myself to make that happen, because that would be so fun and like so exciting to do. It's like that's a great idea.
I think so too. I mean, I've seen I've been on some guys' show, like there's a Jets YouTuber called Green Bean Jets Fan, and yeah, he does what I want to do. Well, I said earlier, you know, he's in a RV, and he drives around and does stuff, and he's done some on. I personally, I've never seen an ocean. Okay,
really,
never. I have never seen any ocean. I've never seen any sea. The largest body of water I've ever seen is Lake Michigan. Okay, so I mean, yeah, I've seen water where it's big enough and there's 3-foot waves and I can't see the other end, but that's not the same as seeing an ocean. No. You know what I mean? So it kind of helps me live vicariously through other people when they do stuff like that, and you're like, oh, that looks cool, and maybe it might kind of push people like myself into kind of being like, man, I wouldn't mind being in that position. Maybe I'll save up some money and buy a ticket and go, you know, at some point. So, yeah, absolutely, man.
I got another Colts question, man. We'll get to it in just a second. But do you have Instagram?
Yeah, I don't. I'm not on Instagram a whole lot. I use it as I might have a thought, and then I'll go outside and I'll walk down the street and I'll just talk, you know, for a couple minutes, and then that's all I use it for. Because
give me a follow, because I will show you the ocean through Instagram.
Okay.
Now, one question I have before we get into the Colts question, I'm excited about this Colts question, but is there a dream ocean you have to see? Like, if you could pick one, which one? Like, are you going to New York? Are you going to Florida? Are you going to Oregon or Hawaii? Like, if you get to the ocean, you got one shot at it. Where are you going?
Ooh, that's tough. Now, if I'm going to go to an actual, like, okay, so if I have to pick a legitimately one of the 7 oceans or whatnot, you know, probably the Pacific, because, you know what I mean? Just it's got that appeal to it. Where you see, you know, beaches and all that neat stuff.
Are there mountains in Indiana? There's not, right? There's like a couple hills.
Yeah, they have hills in southern, hills that are big enough to be considered mountains.
Okay.
But they're still
like sled
just
on
hills.
And stuff.
Yeah.
Man, you got to get to. You would love the Oregon coast, where it's like these massive, like.
I used to live in Sturgis, South Dakota, in the Black Hills of South Dakota, which are mountains. So I've been there. I've done that. So
let's go. That's awesome. Well, so here's my Colts question.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long. We'll get there the long way if that's okay. Growing up, I was a fan of Seattle sports. I was a Seattle Supersonics fan, and they abandoned me. They left, moved to Oklahoma City, heartbroken forever. And then the Seattle Mariners were a team that I could not, after being a fan for year after year after year, and making decision after decision after decision that even myself at 9 years old could not get on board with. I decided I'm not a fan of this team anymore. And ever since that day, I decided to stop being a Mariners fan. I've never had a favorite team since that moment. And it's been very freeing. I recommend it to everybody, kind of snarkily having fun with it. But I saved myself a lot of pain, let me tell you. In fact, the Mariners just missed out on the playoffs the other day, and I was like, good thing I don't care. And it was legitimate. I actually thought they did make it, so I was kind of like, oh, cool. And then they didn't. I'm like, oh, I know I don't care, because I found out they didn't, and I got the script flipped on me, and I didn't have any reaction. Anyway, I say all that to ask you, during the Andrew Luck saga, when they didn't support him very well, and you could argue that their terrible general manager drove Andrew Luck out of the league by not giving him a good enough offensive line. Like, you can make all those arguments. Did it ever cross your mind to think like, hey, I'm going to bail on this team. I can't support this anymore. Did doubt ever creep into your fandom of the Colts?
I was a Colt fan back when Jeff George was the quarterback. Okay. Mm-hmm. Jack Trudeau, things of that. Way back in the 80s when the Colts were still part of the AFC East, and they were the bottom feeders, right? So it's that whole support your home team, kind of thing, and that's what I do. But
it's not a decision, right? It's more than that.
It's more than that. It's more than just. But at the same time, to be fair, I don't limit myself to just being a fan of the Colts. Right? I'm a fan of the NFL in general. And I have other favorite players, teams. And people say you can't have more than one favorite team. That's BS. Okay? That's completely BS. I don't agree with that at all. Now, it might be difficult to be a fan of the Packers and the Bears at the same time. So there's certain situations that I understand might be difficult to do. But, it's just like it's like being a fan of the Red Sox and the Yankees at the same time might be a little bit hard. But yeah, I definitely, I started off being a Colts fan just because locality.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, I began to appreciate everything, the whole NFL as a whole, how things are different from team to team, player to player, coach to coach. Things are built differently, locker rooms and all of that. And as I see it as a whole and have experienced really, really low lows and really, really high highs, I've come to realize that I am a lucky person, because not many people have ever went through a Peyton Manning era in their fandom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And or go from Peyton Manning to an Andrew Luck, right? That type of stuff. Very, very lucky, and it helps me out when you're sitting there and Andrew Luck retires and Jacoby Brissett starts and you win 4 games. And, I remember the really bad stuff. So it gives me patience and pause to go, you know what? I could push through this and look for the future, Yeah. And it helps a ton. But it also gives me the respect to be able to look and go, you know what? I didn't like what Washington stood for before, but right now I really like where they're going with the team. The Washington football team. Please pick a mascot of a name or something. I beg you, please.
I hate that I always look at, like, I keep reading it as WTF. I'm like, oh no, it's WFT.
I do the same thing. I think everybody looks at it and go, what the?
We all do it.
Yeah, exactly. Man, you told me hour and a half. We're pushing 2 hours, my guy.
It's been fun.
There still isn't any kind of da 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 going on in your apartment, apparently.
True. So far, I was worried about the jackhammer downstairs in the renovation of the apartment downstairs, and so far nothing.
Awesome. That's great. I personally, I'm gonna probably need to eat something here shortly.
Yeah, I should go too.
But hey, before we go, please, I know that probably the majority of people watching this knows who you are, but there might be some guys, like I said, my co-host had no idea who you were.
Yeah.
Until I told. So, tell people a little bit about you, where they can find you, and give them a little information about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Zac Shomler. I am the host and creator and CEO of Strong Opinion Sports. It's a podcast. It's a YouTube channel. And, it's funny, the name came from, I think early on, 4 years ago when I started, I was in college. I was trying to pick a side, and I was trying to be something that wasn't authentic to me. It was, hot takes and this and that. And the show has really evolved from being hot takes and being inauthentic to now I kind of, the best way I would put it is that sometimes the strongest thing you can say is to say that there isn't a right answer, and kind of exploring the nuance of what happens in sports and being fair and being honest. And I'm because I don't have a favorite team, I can really just be as honest as I possibly can be. And a lot of people don't understand that they think I'm playing sides, and I really don't have a side. I love storylines. I kind of like chaos. Like, I think if the Seahawks beat the Rams tonight, that'd be really crazy because they'd both be, have the same record, and 3-2 or 3-2, and what happens there. And so I really just, man, my approach is to be as authentic as I possibly can. I work really hard. I'm very proud of that. Like, I joke with my fiance because I pull so many all-nighters, and I sleep 3 to 4 hours a night every night. And I think that I kind of joke with her, like, I think I might be literally the hardest working human being in Hawaii. Like, everyone's at the beach every day, and I'm in my office like running around, like manic episodes, trying to make as much content as possible. But I hope that I try to be as humble and respectful as I can, and I try to talk about topics in that way too, with that tone of voice. And I'd love it if people look me up, Strong Opinion Sports, look up Zac Shomler, you'll find stuff. I also do a podcast with my fiance called the Flawed Humans Podcast. And if you watch or if you listen to my stuff, I just want to say thank you, because I really appreciate it. I have the best life in the world, and I'm not the richest man in the world, but I definitely think I'm the happiest and most fulfilled human I've ever met. And I just love what I do. It's so much fun, and I love sports, and I love getting to talk to guys like you. And I want to give you a compliment, man. I don't know if your fans would know this about you, but I look at you, and you clearly have made so many decisions to say, I'm going for it. I'm making content, and said, you have every excuse to not make content, and you've overcome multiple times. And that makes me a fan of you forever. And I just think that your energy and your passion for the Colts, and I got to say, I shouldn't say when I'm in Indianapolis, I'm going to buy you a beer. We're going to have a great time. I can't wait for that day to hopefully give you a hug. You're 6'6", I think.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, hey, what's up, Mr. Giant? I think that'd be really fun. And I can't say thank you enough for having me on. It's been really a pleasure to talk to you for the last 2 hours. And thank you so very much.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure for me to sit here and talk with you. I've watched you for a couple years now, and since I've been watching, you have had honest opinions. Not just strong opinions. It's honest opinions of a lot of stuff. And that's nice to have. I can respect that. And I appreciate that a lot, because that gives a lot of fans, not just Colts fans, but any NFL fan, someone to go to and be like, you know what? This guy is not just trying to create a narrative like a lot of media is. He's giving you his honest opinion. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, whatever it is, at least it's an honest opinion. It might be strong at times, but it's an honest opinion. And that's something that is very rare in today's media.
I watch Stephen A. Smith sometimes on ESPN, and I truly believe that he doesn't believe what he's saying. Like, I think he's just saying stuff because the producer told him, hey, it'd be a good idea if you pick this side today. And I can promise two things. A, I promise you, if you're awake, I'm probably also awake working my butt off. But number two is I believe everything I say. You may not agree. It may not be, and I get stuff wrong, and I say stuff sometimes where I'm like, there's an error in my thinking, but I promise you I never say stuff that I don't believe. I believe everything I say with my whole heart, and then what comes along with that is the willingness to reevaluate and change my opinion when I'm proven wrong by information or by a better opinion, because sometimes people have better ideas than me. And so, I promise you, I believe everything I say, and I'm willing to adjust that accordingly. So yeah, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I try to base everything that I do the exact same way. You're getting the raw me, right? I'm not making anything up here. Now, you're getting someone that has done his research. I mean, obviously, you ain't gonna catch me on the street and ask me a specific question on something without me getting, I mean, that's a little bit different, but when we sit here and we talk, I've done my research. I formed my opinion. I'm going to give you the honest opinion of what it is. Like you say, it might not agree with yours, and, I may be wrong in some instances, but at the same time, at least that it's real, and that's all I'm trying to portray. Same with you. So, again,
what goes along with that, if I may, too, is being willing to admit when you don't know. Like, there are times where, like, I cover 32 football teams. It's a lot, and I can't keep up with every grain of information, and I rely on, like, there are commenters that correct me, and part of my show is every episode saying, like, hey, last episode I said that the Raiders won the Super Bowl. They didn't win the Super Bowl in 2002, like, whatever it is, right? And they lost to the Buccaneers, and correcting myself. And I think it's so part of what I think makes hopefully me trustworthy is that I also admit when I don't know something or that I'm wrong about. And that's something that everyone should do, whether you're talking about sports or dealing with your spouse or, I don't know, every aspect of life. You should be able to admit when you don't know something, because there's no strength in posturing and pretending you know something you don't. I think that's actually a sign of weakness. So yeah, I think I encourage everybody to be secure enough in who they are to admit and own the things they also don't know.
Absolutely. That's great advice. I've had to do it. I've had people in live chats ask me, questions about teams that I don't follow nearly as closely as I do the Colts. And then it's going to happen. I mean, I can't, like you say, there's 32 NFL teams out there. It's very difficult to follow every single one of them super closely. And you're asking me about a practice squad guy from a team that I don't know. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'll have to look that up real quick and then give you my opinion on it, Yeah. But it is what it is. And as long as we're honest with ourselves, that means we can be honest with you. And that's important. So, again, appreciate you being here. If you're watching this, guys, please smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're not subscribed, tag that notification bell because YouTube is weird. Make sure all notifications turned on, because just having it on doesn't mean that you're going to be notified. They're odd that way. But make sure you go check out Strong Opinion Sports. There will be links down in the description where you can check it out, and make sure you subscribe to this channel. Until next time, I'm Lawrence Owen. That's Zac Shomler. And as usual, have a good one.
Just because a player's not a household name doesn't mean we can't make him a household name.